Welcome to the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. I bring over 40 years experience in comic books and entertainment across 5 decades. I offer insights and opinions on the business and the art of comic books and pop culture. If it's happening in games, in movies, in streaming, or comic books, we're covering it right here on the Robservations Show. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. I am your host, Rob Liefeld. Thank you for joining us wherever you listen to us on whatever platform, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple, iHeartRadio, Podbean, or YouTube. We are so grateful that you listen, that you join us as we discuss the worlds of comic books and pop culture and everything in between. Today, we have a great, fun show for you featuring the head honcho, the grand poobah, the big boss, the owner of Comics, Toons, and Toys in Tustin, California. Comics, Toons, and Toys is, as Mike will tell you during the interview, it is a generational store. 37 years, it has been going strong, and it has served the community and has a giant fan base that grew old with the store while it's still attracting all manner of new customers. I've been there. I've watched them young and old come in. The pull lists continue to grow. The traffic is always heavy. No matter what day I am in Comics, Toons, and Toys, it is jam-packed. It is bustling. Again, it is the longest running store in Southern California in Orange County. And we are just so grateful that it exists, that it serves us. It has been open without interruption, if you take the pandemic away, for nearly 4 decades. And Mike is a really smart guy. He has been the full owner of the store for the last 11 years. We're going to listen to all the different insights that he brings as he runs his, as he says, brick and mortar store, and his attitude on the books that are coming this fall, what has been selling for him in the spring and summer of 2025, and everything else that his great store has to offer. Especially, we get into a deep discussion about back issues. I wanted to share with you really quick before we get locked and loaded with Mike, my history with this store. I was the first employee that this store ever had. It was opened by another gentleman who sold it to the man who would have it for about 25 years before selling it to Mike. Mike actually worked at the store on and off before he purchased it outright. And we are also grateful that he did. But Matt, who owned the store for the 25 plus years, was just such a fantastic owner. And he bought it from the guy that opened it very early on Tustin Avenue in the city of Tustin. I was the first employee there, and it was a blast. It was a great summer, spring job. I worked there almost an entire year. The most important thing about that year was it was part of 86 dovetailing to part of 87. I left once I got hired in the spring full time at Marvel Comics and DC Comics. But as I sat there as a clerk, it was so fun because I got to see all the different trends, and I got to service the community. I forgot to ask Mike. He jokes about he bought comics from me when I was a clerk there, and I would always ring him up wrong. And by wrong, he will tell you that I rang him up too cheap. So he was always said he wanted to get out of there before I realized that I was not made to be a comic book store clerk or a guy who ran a competent register. My head was in the clouds. I was drawing at the store behind the counter, especially on the off days, especially back then, when it was really, the back issue market hadn't boomed yet. We only had a small bin of back issue comic books at that location. That when it was first opened, it actually was renting movies and video games as well as comic books. We didn't have really any toys. The direct market hadn't exploded for toys. But the most important thing about the time that I was working there was it was the time of Dark Knight, and it was the time of Watchmen. It was mid to end of 1986 into early 87. Marvel launched the new universe, which was very controversial and ultimately did not prove to be a successful launch for them. But Frank Miller's Dark Knight was the book that I received the most questions about. As I worked there as a clerk, I answered the most telephone calls for. and was asked in person by more people, like, when's this coming in? When's this coming in? It was a book that had really grabbed the attention of the entire comic book world and beyond, because of the acclaim that it received from all of the mainstream press. Frank Miller's Dark Knight was covered by Time Magazine, Rolling Stone, and every magazine and television show in between. They really caught wind of the evolution that he had provided for Batman. And so it was in my time in comic books, especially as this time as a fan slash clerk, it was kind of the first of the comic books that crossed over into the mainstream on the sheer, like, ability of the creator. It was Frank Miller. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't a TV show. And Dark Knight had a gap between issues 2 and 3, and then a larger gap, the largest gap between issues 3 and 4. And so you can imagine people were asking about it all the time. Those last 2 issues of Dark Knight I've talked about on this show quite a bit, and it's when Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne are pitted against each other, and Frank had a lot of surprises in store for us, and we didn't really understand what he was ramping up to. But by the time issue 4 arrived, boy, did it deliver. It was a big, giant deal. At the same time, Watchmen was coming out, and as Watchmen was getting towards its last issue, the momentum for that was growing substantially. And I remember opening the boxes when Watchmen 12 came out, and, like, oh my gosh, that day people stormed the store. This store in Tustin, on Tustin Avenue, would become so much more, and in the hands of the next owner, and then now with Mike. And Mike has shepherded through the growing pains of the pandemic. He has some great observations that he shares in regards to running the comic store during the pandemic. I'll let him lay out. I don't want to steal some of the fun verbiage and descriptions that he brings to bear. The last thing that I will always signify in regards to my time clerking there and ringing up comic books, as I said, it was the time of Dark Knight, it was the time of Watchmen, and it was when Dark Horse Comics arrived on the scene. I remember very clearly this brand new, very bold, independent comic company, and thinking, man, these guys really have their stuff together. They had really great anthology books, and they were very slow in growing their fan base. They had a book that grew out of Dark Horse Comics Presents, which was their launch book, and it was a feature called Boris the Bear. And one day, as I sat at the store, I grabbed a backing board because I was such a fan of this character. It was like a parody book, and this was a time where Boris the Bear was kind of an answer to what was going on with the Turtles and the radioactive hamster book that was coming out. I mean, literally, the kind of mutated animal comic book was really all the rage at this time. Boris the Bear was that, but it was also poking fun at all of the trends and the tropes of comic books. I love Boris the Bear so much that I took a backing board and took the flat, more coarse side, not the shiny, glossy side, and I did a hand-drawn Boris the Bear pinup and inked it with my Japanese brush markers that I had just discovered at the time, that I had just gotten from the art store, and I put it in a envelope and I sent it off to Dark Horse Comics, and lo and behold, I was there. They didn't notify me that it was being printed, but I was still at the store. It was in like one of the last few months that I was at the store when the new Boris the Bear came in. Forgive me if I don't know exactly what issue that is. I should have checked before I decided to tap into that memory. But yes, I have a Boris the Bear pinup. I'm sure it's on Google. You can find it. But in the very back of the book, flipping through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, here is my pinup. Here's what I sent in. An editor eventually did make its way and call me, and I did a short story based on Little Red Riding Hood. I still have those pencils. I still have those. That story. It's Little Red Riding Hood and a werewolf, and I drew it for their anthology book, Dark Horse Comics Presents. It never saw print, so it just lives in my drawer. But these are the memories that I have. This story is very special to me. Again, this story has a dedicated, incredible fan base. They have a really dependable subscription base, people that really prefer getting their comics from Comics, Toons, and Toys. I have seen other comic stores come and go in Orange County, and some really good ones shut down just because of the hardships of the time. And there are others who are also still thriving, but none are as big as well stocked, have more variety, have a great selection of back issues, toys, manga, and of course, a dedicated line of the most in demand monthly comics week in, week out. It is what I consider my home store, the store that I shop at the most when I get out and catch up and grab comics. So, hey, everybody, without further ado, I've set the stage. This is a big store. Southern California is a big marketplace, and there is no store bigger and more successful with a bigger historical legacy than this store. So it was a great pleasure to speak with the man who has been behind it for 11 years. Without further ado, here is my interview with Big Mike from Comics, Toons, and Toys. Enjoy. So, hey, here we are with Mighty Mike. Mike, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Tustin, Toons, and Comics. Mike, will you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us your title and what exactly is it that you do?
Sure, I'd love to. First of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, Rob. I am the owner of Comics, Toons, and Toys in Tustin. We're established brick and mortar store, 37 years in operation. I worked there the initial 10 years with the original owner, went on and did other things. Then when he was kind of ready to start stepping down into phases of retirement, he asked if I'd be interested in taking over the business, and I came back on as owner 11 years ago and been running it as the owner since that point.
11 years, Mike. It does not seem that long,
I know. I judge it by my kids, like how fast they grow, you know?
no, I hear you, and I think because there was a period I didn't go in because of the pandemic, it screws my entire kind of timeline up. But so you worked at the store. You worked behind the register. You worked the store at
Correct.
some point. At some point.
Yeah, and right around 89, when I graduated high school, I started working at TJ Maxx, and I'd go in and moan about it to Matt, the previous owner, and eventually he took pity on me and offered me employment there, and we moved the location from its original spot to other location where it stayed for 2 years to its final location where it's at now. So I've been, on there for quite a while. Then my son was born, and my wife at the time had a higher income than me as a comic store employee. So I stepped down to take care of my son, and then this gap of time happened, and I came back. So I mean, I've kind of the bread of the sandwich.
So I talk about your store often over the course of the last 5 years, and certainly in leading up to this discussion, I let everybody know you are the premier store in Orange County. A buddy of mine was in from out of town. We were having lunch. He had come in and tried to hit all these different stores, and he told me about a store that he had been to that had no back issues prior to 2000. And look, I just cut him off and I said, "Have you been to Tustin Toons and Toys? Comics, Toons, and Toys?" And he said, "No." And literally, we got in the car and we drove to your store. The reason that I love recommending your store, and anyone who is in the Southern California area, find your way in Orange County to Tustin, get to Comics, Toons, and Toys. It is so well stocked. You can get lost in all of your inventory, your back issues. You've got all the fresh stuff. You've got a great amount of trade paperbacks. You've got the toys. I mean, it is a full service comic book store. It's the biggest and the best in Orange County, just so everybody knows, once again, where I'm coming to, who I'm talking to. Now, this summer, this spring, this season, these last years, I'll just be real upfront and ask you, are comic books making a comeback, Mike? Are comic books making a comeback?
I don't want to say they're making a comeback, but I want to say that there's certainly still a strong audience in collecting of them. We're still, in the positive every month, which is a great sign. There's still, the store's always been, you've been in there and you've seen, it's just like a middle of a week on a Tuesday, it'll be like shoulder to shoulder, and then it'll kind of thin out and then be full of people again. The one thing that you did touch on is, you're right. I mean, the comic industry has a lot of facets. It's like a smorgasbord. Aside from the amount of stuff you can choose from, it's the formats. You can get, back issues, new issues, graphic novels, toys, things like that. So there's a little bit of something for everyone there, and it seems to be still sustainable.
Well, I visit quite often, and I just noticed exactly what you just talked about. So I was there, I would say last winter, and then spring, and then just a week ago, and those I was on my way to pick my kid up from the airport, coming in from Texas. Planned it to stop at your store for about 90 minutes before I would make my way to John Wayne Airport and pick him up. And I saw a healthy amount of middle-aged men that looked like me. Cut to the spring, I saw a much younger group of I would say collegiates making their way through. One funny thing, I saw a whole group of kids coming from junior high. They all had backpacks. They walked all of your aisles and walked out because I'm like, these poor kids. They're shopping with their eyes, but they can't afford anything. That's what I took it at. But then when I was there, so when I took my friend to your store a month ago, and then when I was there a week ago, I saw again more of the collegiates, more young people, and they were buying. That you were the register was ringing all day.
Yeah, during the summer, it's a very different animal because out in California here, it stays light pretty late, and people are off school and colleges and stuff's out. So I mean, there's a steady. It's like weekend traffic all week, and there's definitely new product that's keeping people engaged in the industry. So that's good too. And I don't know if movies and cinema are driving stuff anymore, but I definitely think there's just kind of a fun factor.
So you mentioned movies and cinema. Let me ask you specifically: did either Superman or Fantastic Four drive specific business? Did one do more than the other? I do not know the answer to this, so
Sure.
please let me know.
I think marginally, I would say Superman outpaced Fantastic Four, and specifically Crypto. The dog brought in like a young audience of just kind of a like fun pop collecting. Not I don't necessarily mean Funko Pop. I just mean pop culture. People that aren't necessarily entrenched into wanting a story. They just want something fun to pick up. A novelty type item. So they picked up some books spinning onto it. And some of the spin-off characters, Mr. Terrific and stuff seem to have a little surge. The new Fantastic Four book did come out right at the time of the movie, and it did outsell previous Fantastic Four numbers by about, I'd say, a little above double. But remember, also there's the standard cover and a lot of variant covers that help perpetuate that.
That look, Marvel has gotten really good at landing those launch books to coincide with the movie being in the theater. So that's great to hear. That's great to hear that. I mean, 50%, I was sitting here, I didn't know if you were going to say 15, 20. That's a big number, even with the
And it's
variants.
actually still following through on issues 2 and 3. It's still keeping the engagement, which is the important part, right? I mean, everyone jumps on. I always talk about the industry. It's like, don't be overwhelmed by the amount of product. Think of it as like a buffet bar at Vegas. You can go sample this, sample that. And it's like the people that did jump on to Fantastic Four, the sales figures are still reflecting it through issues 2 and 3, so that the interest is still engaged.
My buddy and I, when we went there, I've mentioned this on another show, we ended up spending the exact same amount of money. And we bought completely different things, except we had one crossover, and you had just gotten a Fantastic Four collection in. You'd said because I said, "Hey, you got any collections in?" Because that's one great thing about all the brick and mortars. People pull up and they want to unload collections. I actually, another time I was in there recently, I saw a guy come back twice while I was there to sell you Star Wars toys. He haggled, and then he ended up making the deal. Then he came back. It was with your manager and did the same thing. And it's like, man, there's so much business going on here. But we both bought my buddy and I bought Fantastic Four back issues, and so I mean it is on the brain, it is on the mind, and so I have to believe that something about the movie was driving that. But with Superman, did it also spill into Supergirl at all?
Yes, Supergirl specifically, but and to touch on where back or not back issues, but trade paperbacks are. Trade paperbacks are in a weird nebulous area right now. For quite a while, I thought trade paperbacks are a great source on multiple levels. They continue to be in print, so they gave people access to stories that the back issues may be hard to find or have gone up in price, stuff like that. Trade paperbacks right now are not staying in print as long as they are. They seem to have a hard time deciding what format they want to go into. Marvel's leaning really heavily into like the omnibus section, and I think that's a tough market because you're asking someone not to sample and try and see if they like, but you're asking them to commit a large chunk of money, an investment of $125 to a book that they may not enjoy. So unfortunately, with all the requests for Supergirl of Tomorrow, which spun out of Superman, the trade wasn't in print during this time frame, which made it they lost sales. We couldn't sell a book that wasn't there.
What? Okay, okay, that's shocking to me. I got to tell you that that is because James Gunn specifically put her in there to spark interest,
Sure, of
right?
course.
So the fact that, I mean, wow,
I
that
mean,
is a
even the
shock.
Batman Absolute trade that dropped 2 weeks ago that did phenomenally well, immediately is on back order, unable to fulfill right now. So like we sold out of it the first week it was out, and been waiting to get it back in. And currently they're, I guess, rushing to print more because currently there's no excess print to ship.
Is this also in regards? So, Mike, what you're telling us is the publishers are taking less risk. They are
I
playing
think
it as
so too. I
close to the
think the
vest.
reins are much tighter. I've noticed in the past, so we've been doing this for quite a while. We order them. It's like Moneyball. We guesstimate how we order product, and it's all educated guess. And then something sells out, and we go to reorder it. And for quite a while, distributors, Diamond, Lunar, Penguin, would have some excess that they would gamble upon for one of two things. It would either be if books were damaged or lost in shipment, they could fulfill those orders, or if retailers wanted to order more. I've noticed more and more they just print to order and then go back to print potentially. So stuff is on a tighter margin there. And on the graphic novels, we're having a really hard time filling like the middle and early numbers. So like, let's say it's like Spider Gwen, you
Hmm.
can't order, and I may be wrong, and that's not Spider Gwen, but like you can't order issues 1, 2, 3, and 4 in trade, and then you can get like 6 through 11. But
Okay.
you can't offer a new consumer a jumping on point because they're not producing the first six or whatever, and that's consistent across a lot of the trades now. My trade room I can see is thinner because I can't reorder it.
Well, see, this is why we have bright minds like you on to tell us this, because Mike, this is news to me. I know when I go through Image Comics, we decide on a number, and then when that number is done, then we, like you said, decide to go back to press. And I know that that's occasionally, and I will defer to the publisher because he's pretty good at it. He'll will agree on a number, and he'll say, I think you should go a little higher. I think you should go a little less based on his experience. I would expect Marvel and DC to take more of a gamble because in Image Comics, the creator himself is having to pay for that overrun out
Sure.
of his own pocket. So it's a little different. But Marvel and DC, these corporations, I'm a little shocked to hear that. You mentioned that there were titles that were turning people on. I'm paraphrasing. You didn't use those
Sure.
words, but that's kind of what you were saying. Can you tell us what those are?
Yeah, can I add a little interjection to that last thing about the
Let's do it.
overprinting, underprinting?
Yeah, yeah.
Is so here's something to think about too. When we order books for free comic book day, we have to pay for those books, but they're basically at cost of what it takes to produce. So it tells you that the production of these comics is significantly lower than the sticker price on the
Hmm.
book. And I know from printing, and you know from printing, that like if you print 10,000 or if you print 11,000, the cost is very negligible. So I mean, I agree with you in the fact that they should print a little more because you're talking pennies in the grand scheme of it for them, and the potential loss of leadership and new jump-ons. So, and then back to your question of um, what's bringing people in or what's keeping them most engaged. The biggest sellers across the board right now are the absolute titles, the three launch titles for DC. Absolute Batman, that's definitely wearing the crown right now.
Okay.
Wonder Woman and Superman are actually really high up there in numbers when you count the variants, and there's normally three covers that ship for those a monthly. Superman and Wonder Woman are reaching like numbers of 100, which is unheard of in the industry for when we've been ordering Superman and Wonder
Right.
Woman. Their standard titles, the non-absolutes, Wonder Woman we sell about 20, Superman we sell about 25, 30. So it's 75% higher on the absolutes. Then on the Marvel side, it's again these new universe type things. It's the Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man is the highest seller over there, and that's right around 100 also for our store.
Yeah.
And then surprisingly, the next book is Image. It's not a Marvel or DC. It's the Transformers. It sells exceptionally well, and that spins off into Void Rivals and GI Joe as well. And then a lot of other books kind of there's a few levels after that. Like X-Men these days, I would say is like in the on the standard cover A, about 30 books, and then stuff starts going to like 20s and 10s, depending on what the title is.
You schooled me several years going back to when you first took over the store. The one thing I really always have enjoyed is picking your brain while I'm at the store and asking
Thanks.
you. And you had told me, you said, Rob, Batman is our pace book. It is our best selling book. It's our top selling. And there was a period after the pandemic a couple of years ago that you'd say like, Rob, Batman has really dropped for us. We are ordering it at all time lows. Obviously now this absolute represents this giant
Sure.
rebound. But where would the 30 copies of X-Men that you just said, where would that have like in the heyday of the X-Men over the last decade? What is the X-Men at a great the best
Uh,
number they could?
50 to 70,
Okay.
so close to double where it's at,
Okay.
especially when Hickman took over with his, I'm not even sure what that story arc
House of
was.
X. Yeah.
Yeah, so the House of X area. There was a time when standard Batman, I would say, was right around with all the covers, about 200 a week. Everyone's pull, when you do the pull, you would just, you get the guy's name, Batman, Batman, Batman. Like everyone got Batman in there. And then artists and writers and creators changed and stuff on it. And it's really, for us, dissipated down. It's probably in the 60s on Batman Standard. But the one that's the most telltale to me is Detective, which is like, was almost reaching about 80 to 100 sometimes, is around 30. So it's substantially less, where I was saying, from where it was. I just don't think there's a lot of direction in some of those titles.
Well, let me. Well, my hand raised. I would say that there's too many Batman titles. Okay, but they pay a lot of bills. I don't know that we'll have time to totally delve into it, but it goes back to what you said 10 minutes ago about what these corporations are doing, what they're not doing, and the I don't think we will. I don't think we realize behind the curtain how closely they're being watched because paper products, I don't believe, is a giant priority for either corporation, and I think they're having to dance very much both labels, Marvel and
Sure.
DC, to convince the parent company to continue to invest.
Well,
Um,
it's a weird dichotomy, right? Because it's got this symbiotic relationship where a lot of people don't know or didn't know at the time that a lot of the movies and TV shows stemmed from a comic book property, right? I would
Right.
argue that a casual Walking Dead watcher did not know Walking Dead was a comic, or
Correct.
people who watched the Men in Black movies, I'm sure, did not know that started as a comic book first. So but I think these giant conglomerates that get products licensed out to them still understand that the comic book industry is these screenplays, and they've tasted all this blood in the water over the past 10 years, and they've monetized off of it, so they're afraid for not to succeed, but they're definitely, I think there's more cooks in the kitchen.
So we are in complete agreement. Like I said, I just don't know the level of. I've heard some years it's more pressure than others. It feels like DC, as you said, is just cooking right now. I want to follow up with you on your Batman. When you said no matter what, when you said everyone's poll had Batman, Batman. So we're talking like from Scott Snyder to Tom King to James Tynion, and it was just seamless. Everyone was pulling.
Right. Now, even it's the same thing. We get a pile of absolute Batman in, this big. We put it down. We start doing our pulls. We have about 350 subscribers. By the time we're done with the pulls and we put on the rack, it's like that. I mean, that much gets absorbed by pre-request.
I know from a creator standpoint, over this last 5 years, especially given the microphone of social media, I mean, you see all comic book creators are telling people you've got to get this pulled, you've got to get it on our pull list, you've got to request it. I mean, it's never been more important. Otherwise, I mean, it's not going to be there. I know that if there's a book out and if I don't get there, or I ask Dave, my buddy Dave, to go pick it up, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it after noon. If it lasts
I
till
mean,
noon and
we've
you
tightened
are,
our belts
yeah.
just like the industry itself, because this is a whole separate subject we can probably spend a ton of time on. It's like, as a brick and mortar industry, you're sandwiched on both ends. You're sandwiched on the cost of operations and the cost of the world globally going up, and consumerism going down,
Mm.
right? So you've got to fit in the middle there. And you know, my logic has always been, I'd rather reorder it, and no one goes out of business by under ordering. You go out
Okay.
of business by having,
Oh,
200, 300 copies extra consistently. So it's a line we walk a lot. We spend a lot of time reordering. We go out of the way to make sure all those orders are fulfilled, but we're definitely tighter on our margins.
hey, like you said, that's why you're in business, Mike. I mean, if I haven't already said it, I mean, you're really a bright guy, smart guy. I respect you tremendously
Thank you.
because I know you, like you said, you moneyball it. You can't take, you've got to manage your risks to stay in business and to give us this great clubhouse, this comic book clubhouse that we all have enjoyed. And I mean, I have, going all the way back to Matt. I mean, I'd say 15, 16 years ago, just what I saw change prior to you taking over. And I think it was necessary for you to take over. And Matt ran a great store, but I knew that store as if I want anything, I just have to go there. I'm like, hey, I want ElfQuest trade paperbacks from 1989. I bet you Matt has them. I drive over there and they were there. Hey, I want a Howard Chaykin graphic novel from 1990. And I'm like, there it is. Like, so, there was one time I wanted to get the trade paperback of History of the DC Universe, the two-parter that George Perez did with Marv Wolfman, but it had an Alex Ross cover, and I drove all the way to the store, and I got the last copy on the shelf, and it probably was 5, 6 years old. But what you guys have done, like mini stores, there are stores that don't carry trades anymore. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but I've had stores tell me, you need to go to Amazon if you want that. We're not taking risks. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
you
seems
mentioned
really detrimental. Trades, I
well,
still to this day think are great, especially if they keep printing them. It's the one media that you just keep, it sells, you
mm.
reorder. You sell, you reorder. There's like a no risk, all reward all the time.
Mike, I had not ordered anything off Amazon until this retailer told me this, and it's now going on about a decade. And
Sure. That's why we
he's like,
don't get the omnibuses.
well, is that why? Okay,
Well, we can't
no, this is
compete
great.
with it. Yeah, straight up can't compete with Amazon's pricing on it. And if someone, and there's, we're taking the risk to hold it. Amazon's probably drop shipping and all this stuff, but it's like and they don't have the overhead, so they don't have all the over brick and
Sure,
mortar, the employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a million things that drive our bills up. So it's like, and you're asking a consumer to commit to this $100+ book. It's a lot of like, oh, so back to trades. One other thing that I think is kind of stemming and taking the market are that both Marvel and DC have these compact versions now, and they're starting with all the classic stories. DC is they're all 10.99 or 9.99. Sorry, so they're a
great price.
great gateway drug, right? You can go
Yeah,
pick it up. They're small. You get in. I have 2 points of view on this. One as a consumer and one as a retailer. As a consumer, I think it's great. I think that's a perfect way for a casual person to pick up really good stories that you and I grew up on and get them. As a retailer, we weren't having a problem selling the 1999 thicker trade until the market cannibalized itself to the 9.99 smaller trade. So as a retailer, I'd rather continue to sell the higher price trade, you know.
no. Every retailer I've ever told, I mean, you are singing the chorus that you'd rather sell the higher priced. Obviously,
Sure, right?
and I enjoy them. Along those lines, I don't have a single one of those compact, and I know they've been out for 2 years from DC. I don't buy them. I don't want them. I'm glad they exist, but I fit into that. I'd rather pay for the Epic Collection or whatever. So I mean, I'm still your guy. Hey, but before I want to, I want to eventually the last third of this. I want to talk about what's coming up in the fall. Do a fall preview. Um, and then I want, but before that, I want to talk about back issues. But I just want to make sure we're covering. So we got that. Basically, the Energon books are really doing well for you. All of the Robert Kirkman,
Yes.
the licensed stuff with Transformers, with Void Rivals. You said GI Joe, and then Battle Beast has been a monster, right? It was
That's
out
yeah,
the gate.
because it's got a pretty much historically anything that has a film property running consecutively with a book release, the book release tends to have a higher desirability.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when they couldn't show GI Joe, toy ads during the GI Joe cartoon because we get enticed by watching this stuff. So I still think it carries over to this day. Invincible's a great show,
Yeah.
and it makes people want to pick up the product. That's where I see the most new young audiences come in, is Invincible.
The yeah, no, I again watched people, you like so many other retailers. It's every retailer that I go to the night before have your books out, and with all of the labels on, like not available, not available, not available. Make you can't touch. And I always see people like, Can I get that? Can I get that Battle Beast? I mean, it is a hot book.
Yeah.
What is there anything we're missing that paid the rent over the summer, the spring?
No, I will say I think for us I don't like to speak for like all stores because everyone has a different demographic and a different business model of how they handle it. We're a generational based store. We've been in business, like I said, a very long time,
Yeah.
and we have a large customer base that gets a fair amount of product. And then I've got new groups of even young kids that get a fair amount of product. I think it's that finding that fine line that I was speaking of earlier and being able to carry enough to appeal to everybody, and I don't think any book is any less desirable to say thanks for keeping me in business. Anything that sells and engages people and they have interest in, I think is great.
Let me ask you a question that I am so curious. Do you order everything in the catalog?
Well, that question is a little nebulous now because there is no catalog any longer.
I
There's
understand.
right. So if it's a Marvel or a DC title, the answer is yes. If
Okay.
it's an Image title, the answer is yes. But I will say some Image titles maybe as marginal as like 3 or 5 of it on the
No.
number ones if it doesn't have like a big name associated with it or
Hmm.
an existing property. Um, every dark horse, pretty much every dark horse, every boom, yeah, yes to almost everything
Okay.
to give it, especially to give it a shot. Now, where the answer would be wrong is after it's had that shot and hasn't landed.
Right.
If we're selling 0 copies of some Boomstone, I'm not picking Boom on particular, but just
No,
Boom
sure, sure.
Studio. So if we ordered issue 1, issue 2, and we're selling zero. Well, I'm not going to order issue 3.
No, I
I'll say
understand.
okay, that's Moneyball. You know,
And but that does not apply to Marvel and DC.
if any title was to drop to 0, I would drop them as well. But nothing
Okay.
has ever done that. You know,
Okay. Good to know. This is great. Because look, I there are other stores in the Southern California area, and they have told me that there are titles from both. And I just look at it when they tell me like, times are tough and they're moneyballing it. They're just playing the margins. But there are now Marvel and DC titles. I would say titles in the Avengers family and the titles in the Justice League family. Solo books associated with both that people are like, I'm not carrying that, which I'm like, wow, we are different, definitely living in different times. But that's why your store is awesome.
Mhm.
That's why your
Well,
store
I
is the
can
best.
different demographics too and stuff, and also like they may not never know too, like this that whole you don't know the shot that you never take, right? So I'm like
Right.
Fire and Ice Justice League spinoff, 2 characters that I actually really enjoyed growing up on the
Yeah.
when they were doing the comedic Justice League stuff. We sell 4 copies, right? But I mean, if you didn't order them, you wouldn't know that someone wants it. And also, it's important to have a happy consumers, right? You want people to come there, and everyone wants
Yeah.
to win. You know,
And anybody can request a comic from you and you'll order it for them. I
A
mean,
hundred
that's the,
percent. And even if
yeah.
people come in and I put that out there to them, hey, we don't have it, we can order it, and they'll say, oh, I'm not from here, I'm from wherever. I always preface it with like, well, all of us order from the same distributors. You can ask your local comic shop to get you that book because if that book loses their engagement in the industry because they can't get it, I think that's a shame. I really think like that you should like do the best you can to provide this to them. So they may have to wait an extra week, but they can still continue what they enjoy.
So to the back issues, while your store is the one I'm most familiar with easily over the last 30 years, uh, when I did a mini tour this summer and I visited, I was basically just at a store in LA and a store in Arizona, so it wasn't terribly aggressive, but they both agreed, they both offered up to me during the signing how important back issues are to their bottom line. And one of the biggest stores in Arizona was flat out just said, Rob, without the back issues, I would not be able to stay in business. But the back issue business is huge for me. And as he's saying this, I'm watching a guy, rifle through. He has a very generous couple of aisles like you do that's packed with back issues. The funny thing about the store that I mentioned earlier, and I won't mention the store, but I was also there a few years ago, and I looked through as my buddy did, and it was this weird realization he has nothing in the store that predates the year 2000, but he has 24 years worth of back issues. Like, and so I'm like, this guy does have back issues, but I want Bronze Age and at least a taste of silver and some of that stuff. And so I'm like, wow, he really does. If you have back issues from 2000, you have 25 years of back issues, but it's missing a giant gap. Stores like yourself, I mean, the last time I went there, I bought a bunch of John Romita Sr. Spider-Man. I bought Silver Age comics from you. I bought the End of Silver or early Bronze. You always are so well stocked, and you have great stuff on the wall. And I was able to watch. It was that November that I was picking my plan to stop by your store. A guy came in and literally, as he's walking in stride, says, "You guys still have that book that you showed on Instagram?" And the manager said yes. And there it was, pulled it down. The guy bought it. It was a slab. It was a nice back issue. And so it's fun to watch like in real time. So Mike, what is the back issue market? What does that represent for your store?
So there's two answers to that I'm going to dive into. One, when it's modern back issue stuff, I think that's important to have because not everyone is a weekly warrior to come in and get these books. People are casual readers who jump on later, and some people still want like either the individual tangible one issue format or they want something before a trade's come out. A trade is normally every 6 issues or so. So let's say you come in a series on issue 4 and you're coming in on that 4th month. There's no trade to offer for 2 months out, right? And you want the previous issues. So it's important to be able to, no one wants to walk into the middle of the movie and just watch the middle to the end. They want the startup, right? So it's important to have the back issues for that part. As stores order, and we were talking about overprinting on a retailer side, we do a similar thing where we specifically overorder. I know my sell-through numbers on certain titles, but as we established earlier, I'm open 37 years. My plan is to be open continually for years and years more. How many books do I want left over? Some of them, I don't want any. I'll sell through, and because it's such a slow back issue thing. Other ones I want consistently. So we try to guesstimate what we want as back issues as well. The second thing about back issues, touching on the older stuff, why the other stores had mentioned they couldn't survive without them, is it tends to be the area that stores have the most margin, right? Depending on when you buy a new issue, you're buying every single book at about 50% of what the cover price is. The back issues, depending how you buy them and in what volume you're in, can get significantly lower. And there's books that are in back issues that have a significantly higher win, the value of a first appearance of Moon Knight or something like that. So you buy a collection, and where these stores are referring to is just, let's say they paid, 30% on a 100% markup, then they have this 70% of higher return. That's not a $2 book or a $4 book. It's a $30 book that they're making 70% on, or whatever their margin is. So that's where back issues come in very strong.
There are a number of collections that you have told me that fly when you get them. Like they won't be in the store long. Is
correct? Yeah.
Can you tell us what titles those are? What
yeah,
family?
I mean, the nail on the head. The most easily, hands down, the consistently is Spider-Man. You get any kind of Spider-Man that has any Bronze Age, Silver Age, anything like that. And I also want to preface it with this. I price the way I would want to pay standing on the other side of the counter. I think this is very important to say. I'm not running a Rolex shop or a Prada purse where I sell one item and I'm substantial for the month. I've seen a lot of dealers go to a lot of conventions with the same product at the same price. If that's the price, it's the wrong price. It's got to move. My attitude has always been the consumer has to be a winner as well. So meaning, if they're going to sell it, they need meat on the bone. If they're going to keep it, they want to walk away like, oh, I got a good deal. No matter what the reasoning is, they have to also win. If the house wins every time, you're not going to go to that casino, right? You're going to go to a casino where you get a margin as well. So with that being said, there's my preface. But Spider-Man, easily out the door. Bronze Age and Silver Age. And Silver Age is harder and harder to come in. But I mean, those ones easily sell right now. Invincible is also another one that you get a run of. That's for a modern book, like a full run of Invincible is about 10K. And that's all. It's a substantial amount of money for 140 books, right?
I regret selling mine 10 years ago. I sold the whole collection, and now so I was having this conversation with Rob. No, he knows. One of your you have a great young, very energetic employee. He's been with you. Gilbert, fantastic.
Yes, he loves the industry.
Gilbert and I were speaking about back issues as I was hunting through some, and I asked him what some of the other ones were that were really gaining a lot of interest. And he told me the Invincible, and I just got sad
Yeah,
because I'm like,
X-Men is also, John Byrne X-Men, Silver Age
yeah.
X-Men is also another thing, so those as well. But it's the thing that's great about Gilbert. This is another thing that's changed from my early time at a comic store to where we're at
Hmm.
now. Comic store back in my day, and myself included, and Matt probably should have slapped me on the wrist more. I was one of those snooty telling you what to buy
Hmm.
employees, right? And that seemed to be like you can relate to these stores back then, right? I mean, everyone had these opinions. There were soapboxes, and now there's a lot of readers who are just super enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
And like yourself, when you speak, you're infectious. If you're excited about something, people also become excited about it. You can't. So no one can come in and buy a product if I'm telling you this is good and here's why it's good and I'm happy and excited. You've engaged in them and they
Yes.
want to pick up the product.
I have seen that 100%. No store, I think, exemplifies it more than your store. Look, I only go to your store. There's two reasons. It has great selection, and the people are great.
Yeah.
No. It could have great selection, and if I felt that the staff was rude to me, I would never go back.
Sure.
Life is too short.
Yeah.
So you have great staff that is super helpful, and you've always really had a great crew. Gilbert is a bright shining star. He's on the floor. He's not behind the counter. He's actually out there. You've got other guys behind the counter. I don't want people to think like the counter is unprotected, but
No,
Gilbert's out there.
everyone's got a role to play. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I just love the customer service that your store
Thanks.
offers. I was making content at your store. You were very kind to let me make some content. The reason I'm sharing this with the audience is because while we were doing it, we didn't want to impede any business that was going on. And Gilbert was leading a very young, a collegiate age, I would say 19, 20-year-old, to the back where we were shooting in the trade paperback kind of alcove. And we stopped to allow the shopping, and the kid wanted Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. And Mike, I
Yes, I
got to
remember.
tell you, I had never been. I got so excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy. Unfortunately, it wasn't one that you had. But those are hard to come by. The minute he said it, I'm like, well, this is a crapshoot because that's a hard trade paperback because it's now like a 1984 reprint. I know they've reprinted it many times, but it's a body of work that I am not sure is as fresh on everyone's mind as Invincible, Transformers. I mean, as a retail carrying it, but the fact that the kid wanted it
Yeah.
was just turned me on. And Gilbert was super friendly in trying to locate it for him. But yeah, I go to your store because you have great product, you have great selection, and the people are great. But and I can vouch what you just said. I can vouch to the audience. I feel the prices are super fair, super ridiculously fair. You are not trying to gouge anybody. It's really I believe fair market value. But I do love hunting down the back issues. Maybe a year and a half ago, I wanted more. I had bagged and boarded all my X-Men with brand new bags and boards, and I realized I had some holes in the second Dave Cockrum run from the early '80s. And I happened to go to your store, and you had a really great selection. And man, there's nothing better than just going. This comic book store is so dependable. How often do you restock with people selling you collections?
Oh, we restock every day of the week. As far as collections go, it that that's contingent upon when a collection comes in. That's something we can't predict, and we can't predict the size of it. The one thing I will say is, for the most part, we do our due diligence. So if we get a collection in and it has let's just pick a title that's not super hot. Let's say it's like Booster Gold, okay?
Okay.
And there's a run of Booster Gold. We will still check the section to see if any gaps are in that Booster Gold section. So let's
Mm,
say we're only missing 2 issues. I'll pull those 2 issues out. We'll put them in the section. The rest of them may very well get bargained off to a sidewalk event or whatever. But
okay.
I mean, we get a run of Birds of Prey. I will check 128 issues to put 2 issues of Birds of Prey into the section, because we have people that come in all the time wanting some obscure type title, and we try to really not be a newsstand. We try to be a comic store where we have the
Yeah.
comics, right? So we do our due diligence. On large collections, though, we have a gentleman who's just reached out to us with 50 long boxes, Silver Age through Modern. So once we get that, it should be pretty exciting. But
Now,
yeah,
you share that on your social media? You'll let people know when they're in.
correct. And that's another thing too. So social media, depending. So let's say we put up, I think people have a radar built into them, but let's say we put up on social media and it's got like a Spider-Man 300, a first Venom, right?
Yeah.
It's, I'm not exaggerating. I want to say within a minute, it's probably sold. About a minute,
Wow.
you
Okay.
know? And I mean, and a lot of dealers know our honey hole type pricing, right? And I don't tell who to buy for what, anyone wants to come in and buy. A bear wants to come in, he's got cash in his pocket, come on in, pick what you want. So there's a lot of times dealers will reach out to us and then like we're that good on our pricing that they have a margin that they can make on their live stream or their convention or
Okay.
whatever. So
So you led me to one other component. Do you believe that live streaming has helped your store? Not your own personal live streaming. You can share that, but do
sure.
you believe that live streaming has given a little extra rocket fuel to comic books?
I don't know. I think it's an interesting area because when the pandemic happened, a lot of people had to switch to this platform and become familiar with it. And during the pandemic, I thought it was we needed these platforms. We were, operating at, I would say, about at least $40,000 a month to stay closed is what it was costing us, right?
Mm.
And I didn't know, like, I've never been in a pandemic. I thought there's going to be tanks driving in the streets and, people scavenging for beans, and I don't know what's going
Yeah.
to happen, right? So we were live streaming, and because of our longevity, and our backstock, I had a lot of books to burn to stay status quo, you know? And the live streaming certainly helped, and people supported us from all across the nation. We were able to ship stuff out. After the pandemic stopped, my philosophy as a retailer is I don't like to send things to other parts of the state or any place
Okay.
else. There's a multiple reasons. One, there's just absolutely no need. We have people interested. Two, you have to reward who's rewarding you. The consumers have been coming to you on a weekly basis, buying what they're buying, keeping you
Mhm.
open. They shouldn't have to fight against the nation to get product that you have. You know, um, so
I
we
don't go ahead.
no no. Did you have a question on that?
No, no, no. I'll let you keep going. Keep
Okay.
going.
I mean, we do use eBay and places like that for like books that are in the multiple thousands. It's just an easier audience out there. But go ahead. What was where?
No, I don't mind, and I won't say the name of the store, but it was so dodgy, and I knew they were going to go out of business. But Mike, the worst case scenario, what you're talking about, there was a store that was open briefly in Orange County, so it's a big canvas, but they had started getting word overnight, before the doors were open on Wednesday, what were the books that people were looking for, and they pulled them off the
Oh, sure.
and I just was like, you can't expect to stay in business if you are only going to gouge the retailers, by literally not putting them out that day. You're going to wait until the weekend or the next week. But I think that's a terrible practice, and
Yeah. So
I'm so glad you don't do that.
now we're aware. Like a lot of times, and it's pretty easy to, even if you weren't aware, you get so many requests that I'm like, it's pretty much a red flag pops up. It's
Mm,
as a
mm.
retailer, you're like, even if you're not following anything out there, after your 20th phone call for some random book that no one asked for, like I need Miles Morales number 42, all of a sudden, right? Then
Yeah,
there's something going on. Now, you made a comment 100 years ago that I stuck with. It's like you mentioned, like when you go to Target, they don't tell you what to buy. You want to buy khakis, you just sell them the khakis.
right.
That's how I operate too. We used to wrestle with, do we put a limit one per customer on these things that are hot? And I think that only adds fuel to the fire. Then people start buying it that weren't going to buy it with the
Mm,
sign, right? So we literally just put product out and let product sell. We don't police anything, you know?
that's great. No, I love that. And actually, it's you and I grew up basically same age, and at every mall that I ever visited during my youth, there was the Gap, clothing store called the Gap. And when you went up to buy your T-shirt, your shirt, they would say, "Would you like some socks or
Yeah,
a belt
supersized.
to go with that?" Yeah, they were before McDonald's was doing it. They were doing it, and I've always felt like that's what should be done at the. You don't need to supersize it, but they celebrated your purchase, and if anything, wanted to add to it, not questioned why are you buying those pants. And like you said, there was a they're out of business. Were they called 21st, 31st century comics? I don't know. They were on the Circle
21st
of,
Century was where
yeah.
Barry had over at the
And
Orange
I
Circle.
liked Barry, but he had an all-time wanker at the register, and this is before I broke in professionally. And he would, like you said, critique everyone's purchases, and I'm just like, would you just shut up? Let me buy my comics and get out of here, because you would rather that I buy these comics. So that's minor grift there. The thing about what the live streaming that I mentioned was because you said,
Oh,
like,
I'm sorry. Yeah,
there are dealers that you no, I'm going to wrap a bow on this.
yeah. I want to get back on that too. I got off topic, but yeah,
No, we're almost done with it. When you said the dealers that come in, people know that they can actually, make money off your good prices that you sell things, because it's the price you would feel comfortable paying. What I'm telling you, and our audience, is those dealers aren't behind a table at a show, at a physical show anymore. They may be that night on a live stream.
correct.
And
Yes.
when I said rocket fuel, I probably should have been more clear. I just feel like the idea that you can click on, and if you are engaged in sending it all over the world, you have a much bigger audience. And so I think it's expanded comics in some way. That's my own personal theory. Is the
Correct.
live stream has
It's entirely possible, but I do kind of think what I've noticed when we get collections that come in that have been bought from live streaming, you can very much tell that this was someone who was using Whatnot or something to
mm, mm,
procure their collection, and it's very much a bunch of impulse buys. It's
okay.
very unsequential, and you don't see like like you can't track this person and go, oh, they read all these Spider-Mans, they read all this. It's just a bunch of midnight clicks and pretty covers and things like
Okay.
that. And I'm not saying all of it's like that, but I do think there's a lot of that live streaming market is kind of it's a different audience than the deep rooted collector, or it's a subsection of that collecting.
There's something that I think that the publishers have done that I really enjoy, is how they have been very liberal in putting foil covers on key comics, like Hulk 181,
Sure.
or X-Men 141, 142. Because, Mike, I'm finding I'm buying them too, because I'm like, I like this shiny.
Well, it appeals to your heartstrings, right?
Yeah,
It's got that
and
crow to the nest shininess. Like, I need to bring that home.
yeah. And have you found that is that just appealing to guys like me who just want a shiny version, or is it another entry level for people who can't afford a first appearance?
100% both. I mean, I really do think there's that whole like, we're just like, that's pretty. It catches our eye. We want it. And depending on what era you grew up in, that's like, you gravitate to those books. Those books mean something to us, right? So we see those covers, we want them.
Yeah.
But there's a large majority of people who will not ever buy a Hulk 181, but wouldn't
Right.
mind having the first appearance of Wolverine. So these are great options. That's another example when we were talking about what we overorder on. On some of those books, like that, the Hulk 181 foil, I ordered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of copies more at the time of press. And same thing with New Mutants 98, actually, too. But it's
Hey,
like,
thank you. I thank you.
well, it's just got legs indefinitely, right? So I'm like, why sell out that weekend when there's always going to be another movie, a property, a video game, something that, gets people's interest in this?
Evergreen. You're talking evergreen titles.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I would agree with you. I just dig them. I'm really happy. Former publisher Dan DiDio, I was looking it up the other day. He went on a rant about the reprints being so popular about 10 years ago, or a couple of years before he was removed. And because he didn't like the fact that Marvel was doing it so much, and then they started doing it. But I'm like, dude, whatever moves products and piques people's interest is not a bad trend to follow. But I know I have taken up so much of your time, but I want to do a last section, and there's at least two more specific questions I wanted to ask you. But I want to do a last section heading into the fall. It's felt like for the last couple of years that we've moved from summer to fall, in that fall has become one of the busiest, most profitable times, where all the big events and all the excitement is. I mean, Transformers 2 years ago came out in October or November. Absolute Batman came out in mid-October, maybe early November. I'm not quite certain, but they were definitely fall releases. And this year it seems like we've got even more. I mean, Marvel's doing their crossover, their big X-Men crossover is this fall. You've got all these titles coming out. So is there anything that is like in your mind, like some key books heading into the fall that you know that your customers are already like geeked about?
Sure. And it must be something to do with like third quarter earnings, how it reflects on some grander picture, right? But obviously the two big requests that we're getting right now, it's the Marvel DC crossovers. It's the
Mm,
Deadpool Batman and the Batman Deadpool, right? We're getting already request. We haven't even ordered. I don't remember which is the first part, who takes precedent, but we haven't even ordered the second part yet, and hands down it's one of the highest amount of numbers we've ordered in quite a while because there hasn't been. And I honestly, as a retailer, as a consumer, I did not think we were going to have another Marvel DC crossover
me
in our
neither.
lifetime. I
No, me
really did.
neither.
So it's interesting that that's going on. As far as anything else I don't think we've even seen it yet. And by that I mean the Absolute books are going to start having a few more Absolute characters. Green
Okay.
Arrow will come out, and there's gonna I didn't even realize it, but I'm like, I guess those characters like the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, they haven't even met each other yet. So that event's coming up where they all collide. And what, for better or worse, one thing I've noticed is a definite the industry's dipping their toe in is these blind bags. And
Talk about them.
there's I just today before I came back here I was ordering the new FOC, and there's the DC KO story, and it's got a blind bag. And most of the time, Batman has a blind bag coming out too for its relaunch of #1. And for some reason, I think it takes a little longer at the press, so you're ordering the blind bags before the rest of the books, etc. But this DC KO's got one, and Mark Spears has a Monsters spinoff with it, and I think it goes back to the whole Pokemon and the gambling. People
Mm,
love to open these packs, and I think it's in some ways I think Pokemon has really cracked the code on this. Like, forget the nostalgia, forget all this. Like, you open a pack and you get a rare thing, you're exuberant, you want to buy another pack and get another rare thing. You open a pack and you don't get anything, you're mad and you want to buy another pack. So I I really think that they're
very
testing
true.
the waters on this, and it's a hard thing to gauge, but there's definitely excitement on it. And the Battle Beast had blind bags when it came out, and that was one of the longest lines that we had at the store. Like before opening, I'd say there was like 50 people in line
Mm,
for these blind bags, and I think Battle Beast carries more gravitas than the DCKO. But I actually think that the Mark Spears monsters, even without a real property behind it, just
okay.
universal monster type characters, I think it's more of it appeals to everyman, and I think there's the fun of it. I think it's fun whether you
Okay.
get
Okay.
anything or not, and it's got that interest behind it. Now, as far as like stories that people are going to get behind, I'm not sure. Ultimate Spider-Man is going to relaunch also, so it's like I think it's going to be kind of a repeat of what was already hot, but start giving a new audience an opportunity to jump on.
So going back to so the Marvel Deadpool Batman is the one that's coming out first. That comes out in September, and then the DC one
Correct.
comes
Yes.
out, I believe, in November. So there's a solid 2 months in between them. I know we had talked about this. Would you be comfortable? And if you're not, that's fine. Saying what the number was that you like, how many Deadpool Batmans
Oh, sure.
did you buy or
And
have
I
you
may be a
ordered?
little off on this, but I want to say with all the covers total, I want to say it's close to 800. We got 400 of just the base book based on
Okay,
Deadpool sales figures and Batman sales figures and
cover A,
hype
the
of it
cover
and
A.
#1 cover
Yep.
A,
Okay.
and then all the other covers, which are kind of, I don't know, they're I wish they were more Deadpool Batmans than other characters because I don't think
Mm.
it fully represents it. It's like when Marvel does like it's Godzilla month, but there's just a cover with Godzilla, right? But I still think the audience, there's a lot of audience that collects art for art. There's a lot of beautiful covers on
Yep.
there, and a lot of characters. I mean, I like that. There's a Magic cover, and I like Magic, so I'm like, I, I think it's going to do really well just for a fun collectible.
Do you and then getting a little more into the weeds here of the 800 and the 400 cover A's, will how many of those will make it to the shelf?
Well, they'll definitely make it to the shelf. And to what quantity? I
Yes.
would say at least, I'd say I would bet about 150 to 200 cover A's will get absorbed to subscribers. Okay.
Okay.
And probably the other books, I want to say I was ordering in quantities of 50 to between 25 and 50 of every other cover. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
And those will still hit the racks too. Now, what'll happen is the variant covers, because of being smaller quantity, will disappear quicker, right? And but it will I'd be surprised to sell through all 400,
Okay.
and at the same time, I guess I wouldn't be surprised. I think we're going to have a very marginal amount left.
I look, regardless of whether Deadpool is in it, I think it's a great gift to fandom because, like you said, it's these events were always big. They were big to us as kids. Superman, Spider-Man, both of those books, Batman, Hulk, X-Men, Titans, and then if the audience that's listening doesn't know, after X-Men, Titans, Marvel and DC had a falling out, and they didn't do another crossover for over a decade. And now I think we're looking at the same thing. It's been at least a decade or more, right?
Well,
Since
and also, I don't think, to be fair, I think that crossover was the one we're talking about in the early 2000s was a kind of a disappointment because it reminded me of the Looney Tunes Warner Brothers movie where everyone was so stringent on they had to have exactly the same amount of airtime, and
mm,
one character couldn't
mm,
have one extra second of airtime.
yeah,
And I felt like those books didn't offer you what you wanted. They really should have done the call in Death of Robin thing to pick these
oh,
characters and
oh,
had like a real audience engagement of like vote, like get involved. Who do you want to see win? Here's the fights that are going to be occurring. Like street, like, and I would have honestly I would have talked to video game companies and had Capcom put a game out at the time. Marvel, Capcom, DC, Capcom. I would have gone deep onto this and put it out there. But I think this this upcoming event with the Deadpool and Batman is more similar to what you're talking about with the Teen Titans and the X-Men, where there's actually going to be a story and fighting and stuff involved. I feel like the other one was kind of just like for the sake of existing.
sure. I look. It's so funny. You just proved to me that my next question is so appropriate because you do put great thought into this about the video game component and all the other aspects, the phone number, and look for the people who may not be aware of. The phone call to save or to kill Robin was a big deal in the comics industry. I remember I was sharing a studio with Jim Valentino. I saw the ad that it was in, and I'm like, look at this. They're going to determine the fate. Supposedly, right? Supposedly,
Sure.
we don't know that they had already decided. They just, but it's like those phone-ins, vote-ins on all these
Well, now
entertainment
you can
shows.
just it's so easy with the computers and the
Yes,
apps and stuff and you could tie in with all these video game properties, the Marvel rivals or whatever. I mean, I just feel like some company could have ran with a product that could have been bigger than just selling the paper product on this.
so here's my question, given your train of thought, Mike, is there a from your perspective as the retailer, the guy that owns the store, the guy the guy that watches all the engagement, all the purchases, is there a title from anyone, any publisher that you look at and go, why is it so hard to sell this? Why don't they just do this? Is there one that you feel like that you know exactly what they could do, a specific title that would do even better for either publisher?
Mm, Not that I can think of on a publisher's end to
Okay.
help promote, but I still think a lot of ownership falls into like listen, every time we're short on staff and we're out there looking for people, finding clerks is not a problem. You can find someone to ring
Hmm.
somebody up. Finding someone who has knowledge in some facet of the industry that they can speak on is really tricky. And that needs a job at a comic store that isn't working a career path or something, right?
Hmm.
And I still think it boils down to I think about the amount of there's some weird stuff that I like. Do you ever know the title "Surviving Megalopolis" and "Leaving Megalopolis" at all? They're
I've
these
heard of both. Yes.
they're Gail Simone books. One of them was a Kickstarter only. They're Dark Horse books, and it basically is like an evil Justice League, similar to the Crime Syndicate or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And I read both those books and I really enjoyed them. And they're told from the standpoint of like the survivors, like Walking Dead, if all the superheroes were like the boys, and it's told basically not from the superheroes, but the people trying to survive this onslaught.
Mm.
And I've sold tons of those trade paperbacks by being able to talk about it with excitement. And I just think any of these shops that are out there just need people who are enthusiastic about it. And to be honest, it's better to have someone who's enthusiastic about the stuff on the peripherals than the mainstream product. The mainstream product kind of sells itself. But it's like if you come in and you're like, oh, I like Tom King's writing on this. What can you recommend that is similar that isn't Tom King? I've already read, and then you have that knowledge.
I
You know.
see. So I have spoken of this often on my on the show, uh, and I have told people that a retailer informed me of this, and now I'm sitting here talking to you, and it is the no shirts, no shoes, no sales, because you know that I have a natural kind of lean towards Tarzan, Korak, his son, the son of Tarzan is Korak, all of those Khazar. And you just kind of, this is going about six, maybe six, pre-pandemic. It was pre-pandemic, and you would just laugh at me, and you're like, Rob, those don't move. Like you told me my experience as a retailer is, and I just laughed out loud because it's the reason that they always get, canceled. They never have. So can you share with that since
Yeah.
since you're the originator of this phrase? So just give me the science behind it.
I don't know. To me, I think that those characters are very interchangeable, and I think that's why there's nothing about them that makes people stick with it. I mean, you can literally, if we took a screenshot of all these characters and removed their heads and just looked at their loincloths and shirts, would you be able to tell who's Tarzan and who's Kazar and who's the next guy? You know?
Okay, this is why I love you. That is fantastic. Okay. So when I was at your store recently, you got a collection of Creatures on the Loose, which Marvel
Yeah, that Throg
it had
guy.
it
Yeah.
had it had Man Wolf at one point. It had different, but there was a extended uh run of a character called Thanagar, who
Yes.
was by Robert. He has like a Conan component, and you were just laughing because honestly, that was like manna from heaven. That was like I could not be. And so one man's trash, right? I am sitting there the next day, Mike. I know you had bags and boards in them that were fresh, but I wanted to put better bags and boards. And so I unsealed each one, repacked it, and as I did, I looked through them, and I mean, I was just thrilled. So, but you're wow, look at them from the loincloths down. You're right. They are very much indiscernible for sure. I love that, dude. I love that I'm actually finally sharing with the audience the man that coined that phrase because I think I may have done an entire podcast on it like 4 years ago. Hey, we have the new Batman book coming out. You mentioned it, The Blind Bag.
Mhm.
That kind of kicks off this fall season. It'll probably be on sale as you and I are as this episode
I
airs.
think it comes out next week. Yeah.
Okay, and this will be airing during that time. So that will be three significant Batman books for DC in 1 year. If you go Absolute, if you go Hush, if you go this new the Matt Fraction
Yeah,
Jorge
the Hush
Jimenez
is
Batman.
getting weirdly amalgamated between two titles. Like I
Okay,
think one title's ending and it's going to the other title to finish.
it's
So
way above my pay grade. You would
yeah,
have
me
to
too.
explain it to me.
I just work here.
But
Yeah.
but so we are now looking at and then Batman Deadpool or DC's is Batman Deadpool, Marvel's
Sure.
Deadpool. But so Batman is literally the star of 2025. I mean, he is like the biggest. Uh,
Well, I don't know.
I
I would say that the Batman Deadpool isn't predicated solely on Batman. I
okay.
think it boils down to, I mean, there's so many product that has a certain amount of rinse repeat to it, right?
Hmm.
This does offer the audience newness, and I think that's what any industry needs to keep their interest, right? It's like, you get fatigue on certain things. I get that it's these two characters that have been around for a very long time, but not together. It's like,
Hmm.
it's creating the new peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You're adding some new component to it, right? And I think that's the excitement level.
Mike, you are talking to look. Uh, I felt like I won the lottery when they announced that Deadpool and Batman were going to be teamed together. I was like, oh my gosh! Like it could have been Batman Wolverine. It could have been Batman Deadpool. Could not have been more excited. Can't wait to get as many copies as are available. The Batman by Matt Fraction. If I can ask you this, given your absolute numbers, given your like where did you fall in regards to enthusiasm or where did you order those books?
Okay, so on this one, remember, it does have a blind bag as
Hmm.
one of the number ones, right? And on that, I think we're like at 200 plus on just the blind bag in the
Wow.
not necessarily selling wholly on Batman, solely on what's in the bag, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I want to say we're like 300, 350 total, because our normal Batman numbers right around 70 to 100. Number
Yeah.
ones always tend to,
Hmm.
jump up. Fraction, he's pretty much proven on stuff as well too.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we'll see where it lands. It again, it's educated guesses. I do the best I can with the numbers we have, and
But
then
there's a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, this is
no, for
you're
sure.
expected. It's a big book.
Yeah, no, for sure. That this it's it. Anyone that already has Batman on their pull list is going to get Batman already, and then people have, of course, added it. When Hush came along, the numbers jumped up drastically. But I
Hmm.
will say, for where they jumped, they kind of tapered off pretty quickly.
Mm.
Back to normal
Uh,
numbers.
so I have a theory, and I have my own skewed theories all the time. I think I'm gonna go with Batman Hush by Jim Lee is Ben Affleck as Batman. It got an immediate positive reaction. Oh my gosh, he looks great. It's also 10 years ago, and I'm not sure that putting out Ben Affleck's Batman right after Robert Pattinson's Batman has excited the fan base. I know this is a reach and this has all sorts of holes in it. So, yes, if you're listening, you're like, Liefeld doesn't make sense. I'm just trying to make it make sense. Absolute Batman became the preferred Batman almost overnight. I saw so many people lean into, loved the story, the world, the writing, the art. And then you're like asking people, hey, come back and celebrate this. And they're like, no, 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 we like this one. We've already decided that Absolute, and I'm going to tell you, dude, just as somebody who's going to watch it very closely, I think Absolute is so obviously, and you led this podcast saying so, it's so obviously the pace horse right now that I think Fractions will be judged against Absolute as well. I mean, Absolute is the bullet train. Like it is just on the tracks, gaining speed, and I think everything that is released alongside of it is going to be compared to it because it's the favorite.
Here's the reason I think that these absolutes also have what they have over these other titles, and the same thing with Ultimate Spider-Man. They're not tethered to 40 years of history.
Mm.
So it's like a new reader can jump on, very fresh, doesn't need to know anything. Even when you tell a new reader they can jump onto this story, that story, you don't need to know this. These characters, Batman and Spider-Man, it's daunting the amount of product that they have underneath them and the
Yeah.
amount of life changes and stuff that's happened, and that does intimidate some people. You jump onto these new titles, it's like, well, you're 7 issues back, you got the whole life history of this absolute Batman,
No,
and and Batman, so it's
yes.
giving you your comfort food with it's like fusion tacos, so it's just
No,
a
I understand, and like the Robert Pattinson Batman, like it was well received, but in the years since, it has seemed to have gained even more momentum to the point where like the anticipation for the sequel is gigantic, especially online constantly. And then you've got James Gunn talking about how he may introduce yet another Batman, and I mean, I'm like, dude, just ride the hot hand, like Pattinson is that version by that filmmaker, that vision is the one that people have seemed to now leaned into. So it's going to be weird. Like I said, I don't think you can go backwards, and then adding something to it further is going to be a little tricky.
well, the casual audience, I think, has a hard time with this kind of stuff. It's like when you put out some of these movies, that are appealing to us, right? They're
Hmm.
obviously geared to our fandom.
Hmm.
I think, if I take my wife to see the Flash with, Michael Keaton and all this stuff
Right,
in it, I'm like, it's gonna just be what's going on here, right?
right.
I loved whatever the name of the Spider-Man movie was with all the Spider-Man in it. I
Yes.
thought that was phenomenal. But there's an audience that is growing up today that it isn't their movies, and it's confusing to them. I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. So my quickie that this is our last two. They're both quickies. We didn't bring up that Transformers is changing creative teams. Robert Kirkman, Dan
Correct.
Mora are
Yep.
coming on, and are you expecting that to do really well?
Yes, Dan Mora is really well received. As you and I briefly talked about this in one of the visits, there's not a lot of artists out there anymore that have a notable style. And I
Mm.
don't, not trying to poo-poo anybody, but there's a lot of, it's very much a lean to house style. Like DC and Marvel have a very, it's just, before I remember like following these artists around, and it's just like, I don't feel there's anyone that goes anywhere that does interiors that I'm like, oh, good, this guy's drawing this thing anymore. But Dan Mora has a lot of heat on him. People love his covers. And Kirkman's obviously proven on many titles, so I think this is going to do really well too.
Yeah,
And
I'm
just the
excited.
nostalgia of the toys, people love the Transformers.
They've done such a great job. I mean, like from the Daniel Warren Johnson and now handing the baton off, and it's look, that's a whole other topic. I love that you brought it up, and you're, um, very, very cognizant of the fact that like when we grew up, again, a John Byrne was instantly identifiable away from a Jim Starlin, a Howard Chaykin, a Walt Simonson. They were very
Sure.
distinct. What you said about House Styles, there are a bunch of guys, and one guy contacted me after hearing me talk about it on the podcast recently and said, Rob, we we are drawing alike because the editors like it and they want us to favor these certain styles. So I'm like, well, dude, that doesn't mean you can't break out. I mean, again, Dan Mora is very. I know a Dan Mora immediately when I see it, and I think him on the Transformers is exciting. I'm excited to get it. I just wanted to know if like you felt that the momentum was going to continue on that book, and you do.
Oh, I do. I haven't really had anyone come to me and go, I want to be added on when this happens. I do have people on plenty of titles that say like, when so and so's off, I'm off. When so and so's on, I'm on. But I
Hmm.
think Transformers will carry itself regardless. Honestly, there's a subculture of people who don't even read Transformers who are Transformer collectors.
Okay.
That is, it's a really big industry.
Wow. Mike, you have just dropped all the dimes. This has been the best conversation. This is the last question. And you mentioned it to me a couple of years ago because I can't imagine, honestly, man, when you're ordering books, my brain would collapse every other column because what's being asked of you guys in regards to all the different editions, the foils. Now you've mentioned bags multiple times, the bags, the variants. I mean, at one point you sat, uh, across from me. You stood across from me at the store, and you're like, Rob, I've really just gotten down to where I'm buying the A covers. Now, this is 3 years ago because I think the variants were going through their first phase of kind of dying. Like there had been too many of them, and they were dying off. And then the variants have had a resurgent. But what is that? You stressed to me the importance of the A cover above all else. You said I got to have the A cover. That's really what I concern myself with. Is that still your same focus?
Yes, for a few reasons. One, most collectors aren't collecting variety of covers. They just want the standard book in their collection. And to be honest, they probably wouldn't care if one cover swapped for another, but it's just easier to stick with for tracking purposes. You're getting the A covers. Second, when it comes to the secondary, third, all these other covers, they tend to always be at least $1 more price point per book. They
Mm,
have a harder cover or they have something on them that denotes this. So I don't expect everyone to want to pay, in a market where everyone's money's already tight, like, hey, give me $5 for this book that you could get for four, right? So there's that. When it comes also to the variants, I will say, as much as I'm an A cover proponent, I don't think the industry could survive without the variant covers. There's not enough books to sell to offset operations cost without people who buy all the variants. So I'm I'm
they've
happy
become
that
that
you.
important.
Yes, I do think so. Yeah,
Okay.
because I mean, if you think about it, even if let's just pick a number. Let's just say it's less than a fourth, 1/8 of the people buy these variants. That's X amount of hundreds equals X amount of thousands equals X amount of whatever, and it's like all of a sudden that covers one employee for a month or lighting or something, right? And it's just operations costs is spendy. And when it comes to ordering the variants, that's we order normally just kind of standard numbers, but there are artists that tend to be the variant artist cover people now.
Yeah.
And there are ones that outsell other ones. And just like the industry's, sex sells. So the girly covers
Okay.
on variants, there's certain people want, if Satana's on a variant, we're up in the order, If depending who's drawing this, David Nakayama variants outsell Bob,
Okay.
So it's just this, like, I lean to that a little bit too, because a lot of people, you collect and you're consuming and you're reading, and there's also you're collecting just because you like it, you
Yes.
know.
You mentioned Magic early on. I happen to really love her, and I love that look that she's had for like the last 15 years. I think Chris Pacello gave her that look, with kind of the headdress. and I was at your store, and I'm like, I would never buy this, but I can't leave without this cover. So I bought an issue of X-Men or Magic that I did not plan on buying, just because I'm like, this image has to
They're
come home with
beautiful.
me.
There's some
Yeah,
beautiful artwork on the covers out there.
Mike, dude, you are so generous to give us your time, and trust me, the audience loves to hear this. I will, before we connect on the podcast, I will have told people again, uh, like as you said, generational, how dependable your store is, how long you've been around. You're the biggest, you're the best in Southern California for my money, man, you, you better stay in business, okay? Let's keep
Appreciate you having me on. This is really nice. Thank you.
let's keep trucking, and thanks for taking the time. People, visit, say it. I say the name wrong, so say it correctly.
Comics, Toons, and Toys.
Yeah, see, I say it
Comics,
wrong.
Toons, and Toys
Comics,
in Tustin.
Tunes, and Toys in Tustin. All right, Mike, thank you for hanging with us today. I'm going to actually, because I didn't tell you this beforehand, when I click off, stay on the air. Do not click off. When I
Okay.
click off, I'm about to click off. Thank you, Mike, for visiting with us today.
No worries. Thank you so much. Take care.
I just want to extend the biggest, deepest thanks to Big Mike for joining us and talking all things comic books, talking about his incredible store. Again, if you're in the Southern California area, if you're driving through Orange County, make sure you take drop into his store and give it a shot. It's a fantastic comic store. It blends everything about old timey comic book stores with the freshest, newest comic book stores in the market. It is our best store in our area. It is not even close. There is no competition. Comics, Tunes, and Toys stands alone. I just want to just express my gratitude for how candid he was. I love that he talked numbers and market conditions, and a lot of guys won't share numbers and get into the kind of specifics. But as Mike has said repeatedly, he's an open book. He likes to share. I have learned so much from him. I hope you learned as much as I learned from his approach to running his very long, very as he said once again, generational, long-running comic book store. Man, we love that store. And we, again, if you are in the area, people call me and ask me, friends of mine, people who I've met through social media, and they go, "Hey, I'm going to be in the area. Is there a comic book store I need to hit up?" I'm like, comics, Tunes, and Toys. Get there as fast as you can. Good stuff. Always has a great selection, and as we talked about, great customer service, great collection, great selection makes for a fantastic store appearance. Thanks again for listening to the show when I am not recording. I am drawing comic books, and when I'm not recording and drawing comic books, I am on social media over on X. You can catch me at Robert Liefeld, RobertLiefeld. That is me. Blue check signifies I am the genuine article. I'm reading your comments, your replies. I'm the one retweeting your stuff. That's me. I love just doing a nice doom scroll and checking out what everybody has to say, and occasionally kind of getting involved in some of the discussions myself. The vitriol can get crazy sometimes, but that's all part of the fun, right? As long as we all just kind of keep a cool head at the end of the day. At Robert Liefeld, blue check is who I am on the platform formerly known as Twitter, X. Over on Instagram, at Rob Liefeld, RoBLiefeld, another blue check. That's really me. Reading and liking your comments, your replies, your mentions, reading your DMs, doing a lot of fun stuff over there, sharing a lot of fun content, hoping to keep you engaged, keep you entertained. When there is new information dropping on any of my new projects, you're going to hear from it likely first, foremost, and always over on my Instagram account at Rob Liefeld, RoBLiefeld, blue check. Check me out over there. We have a great group on Facebook, Rob Liefeld, Marvel Extreme and Beyond. We discuss all things comic books, and lately toys, action figures, statues, you name it. We're talking it up. The vibes are great. They're cool. They're upbeat. We don't do trolls. We don't do negative attitudes there. You're just shown the door immediately. Treat it as a great big family room, dinner table, whatever way you want to look at it, that you've been invited to hang out with all of us. Myself or a gentleman named Terry Sala, Sala, will be the ones that click you on through. We hope to see you at Rob Liefeld Marvel Extreme and Beyond. Every episode, individual episode of this show is given a dedicated post that you can weigh in on, talk over, and discuss. So let's look forward to seeing you over there. I'm on Whatnot. I'm on live streaming. My name is Rob Liefeld. Follow me now so you'll be aware when we go live and start sharing so many of the exclusive products that we have for you guys, whether it's exclusive Marvel comics, of which we have dozens, or our exclusive comics that we make just for the show, editions of Youngblood, Giant Size Youngblood, The Last Blood, so much blood, Whatnot, Rob Liefeld. Give me a follow and you'll be alerted when I go live. You guys, it is so sad. Summer seems to be ending, and I just don't want it to. I still am that 9-year-old kid who is so sad. Maybe the first day of school was your most exciting day. It was not for me. I always hated summer ending, but this has been a great summer. I think it's been a great summer for comic books. I think it's been a great summer for movies, for entertainment. It's been a great summer for spending time with family and friends over here in the Liefeld zip code in our world. I hope it's been great for you. I hope that you have found the space and the friendship and the fellowship and the distractions that you've needed. Remember, guys, don't let the world grind you down. Do not let that treadmill, you know, grind you into powder. You got to get off the hamster wheel, get off the treadmill, take time for yourself, get out, take a long walk, enjoy a great meal with loved ones, with family, with friends. Have that dessert, have that ice cream sundae, okay? You know, put extra whipped cream on it. I mean, I probably had too much ice cream, but it's summer. Come on. It's so good. It melts so much faster in the summer. You walk out the ice cream store, boom, the heat hits it. Man, you're getting, it's melty, it's delicious, it's wonderful. You guys just take some time out for yourself as summer winds down before the big fall ramp up. Escape into a good book, a great comic book, a streaming show that you've been putting off. Go see that movie before it leaves the theaters. We are just hoping that your mental, your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual self is exactly where you need it to be. We care about your well-being. We care about what's going on with you. We are reaching out to you right now, 2 fists, boom, into the Blue Yeti mic, giving you bumps of support. Take care of yourself. Come back. I'll be here. We have more interviews. We have more bright minds of comic books coming to visit with us, and I can't wait to share them all with you. Guys, we will most definitely, we will absolutely, we will inevitably, we will talk again real soon.